Hello, my name is Anthony Barocas with AIBA Communications, and today I wanted to give you a walk around the first large sensor with integrated zoom lens, the Panasonic DVX200. The DVX200 from Panasonic is really one of the first, if not the first, large sensor with integrated zoom lens. Now, there have been some consumer, prosumer 1-inch cameras and camcorders with integrated zoom lenses, but this is the first 4K camera with a 4/3 sensor, and it's able to shoot HD, UHD, DCI. It has different scan rates. It has a 13 times zoom integrated lens, and with some processing you can get to 20. It also has log profile, dual card recording, integrated audio, XLR jacks on it, integrated stereo microphones, and this beautiful LCD screen right here that makes it very easy to see what you're shooting. Now, much like the HD camcorders that came before them, this is the FX1, also known as the Z1U. You can see that the size is actually fairly comparable, although everything is a little bit larger because instead of a tiny sensor in these early camcorders, this has a very large sensor. What does the large sensor give you? Well, many talk about better light gathering, but really a large sensor gives you a shallower depth of field. It gives you that bokeh, so it doesn't look like a small sensor camera. It doesn't look like your phone. It doesn't look like a consumer video camera. It has a more cinematic look to it. So you're able to shoot an interview and have the background go out of focus easier than if you use one of these. To do that, you'd have to zoom all the way in and push the subject far away and have the other things behind them even further away. And you can get kind of the same look, but if you make the sensor bigger, then it becomes much easier. So let's take a walk around this camera. The first thing everyone notices is the red. Second thing everyone notices is this carbon fiber look. Both of them are purely cosmetic. There's nothing functional to the red. There's nothing functional to the carbon fiber. It's not even carbon fiber. It's just plastic. So it's a look to the camera. With the nice features with this one, as with the old HDV camera, is your lens cover is built into the hood. If you take the hood off, obviously you lose that, but you do have a screw-in thread on the front if you want to add external filters. Internally, you've got a 1/4, 1/16, and 1/64 neutral density filter, selectable right here, very easy to get to. Focus assist, punches in, punches out. You can push for auto even when you're in manual, and even if you're in auto, it has a manual override. The focus on this is very capable, very flexible. So if it's focusing on the wrong part, you can quickly grab the dial and turn it and pull the focus into where your subject is. Has an iris button, has an auto white balance right in the front. Like more high-end cameras, you've got your preset white balance, whatever you set it to be, daylight, tungsten, and you have A and B for manuals for whatever creative you want to do if you're shooting with warm cards. But realistically, with the capability of log and post, I think shooting with warm cards is a thing of the past. You've got gain settings. Your gain can be set either to ISO or to traditional video gain settings. And then you can turn your display on and on the viewfinder. One of the interesting things I found with the display is this camcorder, unlike other camcorders like the LS300 I have behind me, if I have the viewfinder on, the screen goes off. If I put my eye up to the viewfinder, the screen goes off, which is kind of interesting. If I turn the screen facing that way, then they'll both be on. I would like it if I could have them both on. This way, somebody can be looking at this and I can, if it's bright out and I want to get a better view, I can look in here, but both are still on. The other interesting thing is I can have this screen full of data, format, ISO, and everything, but if I turn this around, all of a sudden that information is gone. If I look through my viewfinder, I don't have that. I have to turn this back around to me, and then I can have that information. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Lastly, this has zebra and a histogram, but what it does give you, which is awesome, is a waveform monitor, which tells you left to right, top to bottom, what's the brightness in the shot itself. So you can see, oh, someone's collar is a little bright. Oh, the forehead over here is a little bright, or a window in the background is a little bright. And you can see how bright. Is it clipping? Is it just bright? You could tell what the object is and how bright it is in the shot from left to right. It's not as accurate as a false color where it would actually highlight on the object, but I find the waveform easier to use. The waveform, on the other hand, is sort of exclusive. If you turn the waveform on, it doesn't do any other displays. You know, you can't have the waveform on and adjust the iris. You have to like turn the waveform on, look at it, turn it off, and then adjust the iris or adjust the gain or adjust some other setting, so that you are sort of limited in setting, you know, let's just say shutter speed. The shutter speed dial, you know, needs to be accessed on the screen. You need to, you know, set it to access that element and then adjust it. Whereas if you pop up waveform, you're not doing that anymore. Iris obviously has its own dial, so you can adjust the iris while the waveform is up. Another nice thing is it's got 2 media card slots. Now this will actually check your media when you stick it in to make sure your media is fast enough. I have some older cards which work just fine with the GH4 in 200 megabits mode. I put them in here, it does a little and it tells me card not compatible. So I'm using PNY. These write at 66 megabytes a second. The other ones do 40 and 30 megabytes a second. Those this camera has deemed not compatible. So the PNYs work fine, and I'm sure higher end UHC3 cards, not UHC3, U3 cards, very hard with the nomenclature. U3 UHS1 cards will work just fine in here. It has 2 slots. You can record the same thing to both cards. You can record 2 different things, like you can record 4K and you can record a low-res proxy on the things. You can cascade, record on one, then record on the other one, and back and forth. So you can, if you've got something that's really long, you can just keep cascading cards. So there's a lot of functionality to the card capability in here. Audio has its own little section right here, easy to get to the dials while the unit is closed. You've got stereo meters on the screen. You can select between the internal microphones, left and right, XLR jacks, or line level. You can even give it a 48 volts to power any sort of phantom powered microphone that you want to plug into the XLR. You can set them each auto, manual, and that's all right here. There's also other additional capability in the menus, like rolling off the low frequencies, wind filters, etc. So I find this very capable right here, easy to get to and to see your settings even when it's closed and covered up. The one thing that I didn't necessarily like when I came to this camera was the battery. The battery you can't see. The battery is inside here. So pop it out, here's the battery. So if you want to see how much is left on the battery, you can, well, it's telling me nothing's left on the battery, but I know there's a little bit, I was just using it. This battery is inside there. So now if you want to check the battery level, you kind of have to really look in here and push the button and try and see the little LEDs. And this is with a smaller battery. With a bigger battery, that little display is going to be further up against the little roof of this door. I don't like internal battery compartments. Never did. I don't think I ever will. I mean, yes, it would keep it protected if this were like an all-weather type of camera, but given that you've got venting right here on the camera and venting up here on the camera, so they can keep all the electronics cool, I really don't think of this as like, you know, a desert storm kind of camera where it's going to be able to withstand the elements. So I really don't understand the need for an internal battery compartment. Comparatively, here is the old Sony. I can pop the battery off. I can pop the battery on. If I want to check the battery level, it would be right there. And that would make a lot more sense to this than having it internal. So I've always liked that because it makes it so easy, especially in terms of, you know, changing the battery very fast. You really can't get much faster than that. All right, continue our walkthrough around the camera. On this side, we have a bunch of covers. Now, Panasonic did a really good job. They're not flimsy rubber covers which are going to hang there all kind of cheap and flaccid like. This one, top cover, has 2 USB ports. One port is so that you can connect your computer to the camera and use it as a media reader. The second port is so that you can connect the camera to a hard drive and you can dump your media. And also, I believe they have a Wi-Fi module which will plug in here, or maybe even an Ethernet module as well. So there's that capability right there. Back here is a full-size HDMI. I believe it's a 2.0 or a 1.4 port, which means you'll get 4K out of this HDMI, which is very cool. The release for the battery, nothing on the bottom. Continuing our way around here, headphone jack and DC has its own little cover. So, and when you flip it up, it doesn't get in the way of anything. So there's nice thinking there too. Down here, you've got a cornucopia of ports. You've got your SDI out, your time code in and out. So if you want to jam sync different cameras, you can do that here. And a good old fashioned composite video out. If you want to reuse one of your old LCD screens and put it on top, you can do that. I mean, it'd help if it was 16:9, but video out, it's kind of interesting to see that, especially with a professional BNC jack, not some, little 1/8 inch, you get an adapter type of thing. Focus and iris on one control port, zoom and shutter speed on the other port. So you can have 2 different controllers on 2 handles and use this as a studio camera. Plug them in right here. And an additional audio output. I believe that's line level. It's 1/8 inch stereo. And all of that is behind that set of ports. You've got a little strap holder up here, and then continuing around the front, you get your zoom controller on the grip and a little user definable button. This grip, I have to say, is one of the most comfortable I've used like ever. It's really contoured. It's not just like this ball that you put in your hand. It's really got a contour to it. And even though the body of the camera is off to the side that way, and it is a pretty sizable camera, it feels really good. And you can cinch it down tight with the strap. It looks like it's rubber. Underneath the handle actually is rubberized, but this is plastic. It's not rubber. So if you read other reviews that say, oh, it's rubber on the bottom, yeah, it's not. We continue around with the fake carbon fiber on the front. There's a heating vent here. Then there's no lens viewing on this side. Let's just see if we can take the, comes off with a little button right here. You have access to the filter thread, which it says is 72 millimeters. So you'll be able to put on 72 millimeter threads. Up here, you have the mount if you want to put on a shotgun microphone, but because they give you stereo microphones right here, forward facing, and they're actually embedded, so they're kind of blocked from sound coming from behind or above or wherever. I think this is almost sufficient. I mean, they give you this mount built in. They don't give you a microphone included as far as I know. And if you wanted to add that, your XLR jack is right up here, so it pops right in here. If you wanted to add a wireless microphone, your second microphone input is back here. So you could Velcro it, I don't know, to the handle or somewhere, and then pop that in back here. So they're in 2 different places, but the places make sense. Continuing around to the front, you have on top, you have a cold shoe, record button, a zoom, which you set obviously in the menus like all the other ones so that it's set to a certain speed. You have 2 3/8 inch holes and 2 1/4-20 holes in the handle. And this is actually a magnesium, part of the magnesium frame. So this is very solid on top. You also have the second strap holder and the LCD. The LCD is not as responsive as, say, your touch phone. It takes a little bit more contact, but I've been told this will actually work with gloves on too. If you're worried about shaking the camera, put your hand behind it and use your thumb. It folds inside, so it's protected both under and above. But the one thing it doesn't do is it doesn't fold flat to look at it from the side, which, it's kind of odd. It also doesn't slide in facing up. It only slides in facing down. So it's an interesting way to solve it. There's nothing wrong with it as far as I know. With the old HDV camera, it's got it on top. So, again, this doesn't fold flat either, but it does fold in on top of itself. So if you wanted to do like low-level shooting, you can do that. Obviously, facing up, you could do the same thing here. So 2 different ways to solve the same problem, and I don't think there's anything wrong with either one of them. And lastly, behind the door on top of the camera, there are settings for your thumbnail, your canter, reset, and for bars. So this is how you would access playback of your clips. And reading the manual, it looked like this would only play back clips in the format in which you're recording now, which seems kind of odd because I shoot with the GH4, which is what I'm using over here, and I could shoot HD, I could shoot high high speed, I could shoot 4K, I could shoot all these different things, and when I go to play back, they're all there, just like photos. It doesn't care what resolution or what size the photo is, and it's going to show you the photo. So it would seem kind of odd that it would limit what clips you could see. So if you were shooting some high-speed clips, 60p in addition to 24p, and then you go to look at your clips and those 60p clips aren't there, it would seem kind of weird, and you might be worried, well, did I get that clip? I don't know. It's a functional choice that maybe they can rectify in future firmware updates. There are a litany of user buttons on here. 4 user buttons right here. There's one on top. There's 3 back here. Some of them they have pre-assigned, like back here it says waveform, zebra, and optical image stabilizing for turning it on and off. Turning it off while it's on a tripod is a really good idea. So it's nice to have some of them pre-labeled, and then these don't have any label, so you could set them to whatever you want. You just have to remember what they are because you can't label them. And lastly, you've got your menu access right here, but also you can access the menu completely on the screen. You can call it up on the screen, go through the whole menu through a touch interface, and exit back out. So whether you want to do it via the dial or do it via the screen, either way, it doesn't care. It's sort of like a computer that way. Multiple ways of doing the same thing. Each of them work equally well. The only interesting thing I found is this rotating dial is a little too sensitive for my taste. I would keep rolling past the item I wanted to get to, especially if it's a long list, like in the format settings. There's 2 pages of 4K and then HD and fast scan and regular scan and things like that. And I go right past it, and then I go back and go right past it. So I found this to be a little too sensitive in getting to what I want, and you push to enter. So it's roll and push. Overall, the camera is very comfortable to use. It is very easy to get to things. It's the only thing I found in terms of how they've gotten certain things laid out. Like if you wanted to go manual iris, there's an iris button here. If you want a manual shutter, there's a shutter button back here. If you wanted to do, manual gain, or other features. Whereas in this one, I kind of felt that this camera did it right. Iris, gain, speed, white balance, right in a row. So if you're in a shot, you could just go, now you're all manual, and then you can adjust from there or put it all back to your auto settings. This one, you kind of have to, the buttons are in different places. You can still get the job done. It's just Panasonic way of doing things versus the Sony way of doing things. So this is how it looks in your hand. Your hand goes right there. It sits very nicely. And like I said, it's contoured to your hand. When it's off, you're not gonna, you can't hear it, but sometimes you can hear the optical block moving around a little bit because it's not locked down or with the motors. It's very easy to hold. The dual image stabilization in HD mode works pretty well. When you go to 4K, you lose the electronic stabilization. You just have the optical in the lens, which works as well as my GH4 and other cameras. So it's not amazingly better, but I haven't found it any worse. And in terms of shooting 4K camera, handheld, for news gathering, for sports, for documentary work, for run and gun type of shooting, you got to be on the floor of an event, and shooting stuff, you're doing it in 4K. You got the full HDMI out. You can go SDI out, and you've got your big screen here, or you've got your viewfinder, and that makes this a very capable little camera. In comparison with a DSLR, you lose the ability to say, oh, you know what, this lens only goes down to a 4.5 on the long end. You know what, I'd really like to use this, 200 millimeter 2.8, on a Micro-4 thirds camera. You can do that on the GH4 because you can remove the lens and put a different lens on, just a telephoto lens or a prime lens or things like that. And you can get a very shallow depth of field that you can't get with this. It says 2.8, but that's really only at the widest part of the lens, at which point you're not going to notice the fact that it's a 2.8. It lets in more light, but when you're super wide, you're not going to notice a shallow depth of field. Where you would need it is more in the telephoto range, and that's where you don't have the 2.8. On this lens, I'm using the 12 to 35 2.8, and then there's a 35 to 100, I believe it is, a 35 to 150 2.8. So there's a lot more capability in terms of being able to swap lenses if your need is something where you can sit down, change lenses, and craft a look. If you need to just run and gun and get something done, this camera gives you the 4K, the image stabilization, the format flexibility, including 4K P60, and it gives you a large sensor, shallower depth of field than using a tiny chip camcorder. To sum up, the DVX200 is a bit of a surprise from Panasonic. While it is an evolution from their previous cameras, it sort of came from left field to build a servo zoom lens in with their Micro-4 third sensor technology and regular camcorder smarts that Panasonic really knows how to do because they've been doing it a long time and they've been doing it very well. So integrating all those different features into one camera, hey, they've come out with what I think is a pretty good winner here. Has lots of capabilities, a couple little niggles, but overall, nothing that is a deal breaker on this camera. With that, my name is Anthony Barocas with AIBA Communications. Thanks for watching.